Today we're going to talk a little bit about youth and family ministry. We're working on this course now for, it seems like forever. It's only been a couple of months, but it seems like longer than a couple of months for sure. I've got probably 20, 30 books that I've read, about 4,000 pages so far, and that's probably why it feels like more than 2 months. But I've done a lot of research and a lot of studies lately on youth and family ministry, and I've done enough to realize that we have issues inside the church that we have to work on, things that we have to address, and issues and problems that are out there, and everybody sees them and recognizes them, but trying to find the solution is very difficult. We have a Vision Day coming up, not too long from now, hopefully latter part of November, early part of December, and I'm trying to prime you to get you to start thinking about the issues, and trying to think about what we want to do as a church body about the issues. So I'm going to present them to you. It's not all the issues. There's many issues that the youth are facing today, the church is facing. And there's going to be a lot of them that I'm not going to be able to touch because you guys don't want to be here for the rest of the day. 4,000 pages take too long. But these are the main ones that I want to focus on. The first thing that I found out, and this is unequivocal, all the evidence seems to be the same, that since 1945 to today, our church attendance has been dropping. 60% of the people used to come to church in 1945 every single week, and now we're down today to about 25%. 1 in 4 actually show up to church, which is kind of staggering. It's kind of, I don't know, disheartening in some ways. 50 years and half our attendance has disappeared. At this rate, we're not going to have a lot of people left in our church. The other problem is the fact that we've got older people that are getting up there in the years, and they're supporting that church. And when they go, then what happens? It's very hard to talk about the issues because really, it's like looking at an iceberg. The top of what I've mentioned is the decrease in church attendance. That's the top of the iceberg. But what's underneath is very difficult to figure out. There's so many issues underneath that nobody really knows what the problem is. Everybody keeps saying they do. Out of the 4,000 pages that I read, all the different authors, everybody had a different thought and opinion. Everybody had different concepts as to what's going on in the church and why it's declining. I kind of put them all off to the side, and I found out where the agreement was. And probably 80 to 90% of the people, the 3 areas I'm going to focus on, everybody kept saying the same thing. So I figured, well, if everybody's talking about it and they all got this statistical evidence, they must all have found 3 of the reasons. The rest of them, to be real, we don't know. And that's what I found in the research. We really don't know why the church is declining. Not fully. We've got some factors figured out, but the majority we simply don't know. So we'll deal with what we do know. The first part of it is, we go back in time. Back to the 1800s, the Industrial Revolution. There was a time, I guess in the 1800s, when everybody had a farm. Everybody had a farm. There was no such thing as industry. There was no such thing as machinery or equipment. It was everyone working on the farm. When the Industrial Revolution came along, that all changed. At one time, your values, whatever you had, came from your mom, came from your dad, came from your grandparents, because they were the only people you ever had contact with. You didn't have contact with hardly anybody else. You came once a week to church, in a very small church, this size, maybe smaller, and you just came and on your horse and buggy, you'd spend your time at church and then you would go. All the communities looked similar inside the community itself. Similar values, similar goals, everything. However, if you could look at the entire world, you'd soon find out back then everybody had different points of view, just like they do today. The only difference was they didn't have contact with each other. So when a kid grew up, whatever the parents believed, you believed. There was no contest. There was no conflicting values that you had to worry about. You just went and asked mom and dad what's true, and you got that from them. The Industrial Revolution changed all that because people started going to the cities. Now you have people coming together, hundreds, thousands of people, with different points of view, which made it very confusing as to what's true and what is not. The Industrial Revolution changed us also when it came to money. Because now instead of having just barely enough money to make your ends meet, now you have an exorbitant amount of money in which you're going to have to spend it on something. We became fixated with material things. It wasn't so much about the family as it used to be. Now it's all about the things that we can acquire. That did change the church. That changed the fabric of everything that the church stood for. And issue number 1 that comes up in the book over and over again, all these books that I read, was parents simply don't have time for their kids. That's the number 1 issue. And that came up over and over again. The reality is that we work a lot of hours. And when you look at the statistics, it comes out that women now are working in the workforce more and more. In 1900 it was about 10%. Now we're up to almost 60% of women are in the workforce. Actually, that stat's a little outdated. In 2010, we're getting up around 70-80%. And that means that there's 2 people working all the time. Who's taking care of the kids? And that's the issue, really. Before the Industrial Revolution, both parents were at home. The kids worked with the parents, and parents taught them as they worked. But now, who's teaching the kids? Parents literally don't have any time. By the time both parents go out, work 40 hours a week, come home and try to take care of their household, keep all the things going and working inside your house, doing dishes, doing meals and all that stuff, nobody really has time for their kids anymore. That has a profound impact, not just on our kids, but also on the church as well. We learn how to subcontract our parenting rights, our responsibilities and our duties. The first thing that was subcontracted was education. Before the Industrial Revolution, everything you knew came from mom and dad. They taught you everything. Now that's not the case anymore. The people soon realized if they wanted people out there working all the time, you would have to have a school system so that their kids would have a place to go and they would learn. Because mom and dad are now out of the equation. They're always working. So you have the school system that is built up, and what do you think they're teaching our kids? Not necessarily what you believe. Not necessarily what I believe. They're teaching you all sorts of different things, some that you agree with and some that you frankly don't. That has an effect on our kids. But our subcontracting didn't stop there. We also have subcontracting out of dining. How many people have come home at nighttime and said, look, it's just a busy day. I don't have enough time to make dinner or supper. How many people have stopped in at McDonald's and said, look, I'm just going to pick up some fast food, I'll feed the kids, they'll eat along the way, and by the time we get home, dinner's done. They all do it. It's fast and it's convenient. I remember a time, not that long ago, when I used to go to my grandparents' house. I used to go there and we'd have great meals. She'd spend hours, my grandmother, making a wonderful meal. I tell you, I'd trade McDonald's for that meal any day. Because that was real food. That was really good food. And we just laid around. We really didn't do much. We just talked, we gabbed, we laid around, we had a great time. That seems to start to disappear. Our society doesn't know how to lay around. And our society likes the fast food. You can go any spot in the world now and you can get McDonald's. You might be afraid of going to Japan because the food might be different, but guess what? You can still get a Big Mac in Japan. You can still eat, don't worry, McDonald's is there too. And here's where we really subcontract out something that we probably shouldn't be, and that is entertaining our kids. We buy them video games. We buy them television sets, we get them satellite TV, we give them internet access, and we subcontract that out. Because we don't have time, literally, to deal with our kids. We don't have time to play with them. We don't have time to be with them. So if we can get somebody to babysit them, especially the TV or video game, all the better. That buys us more time. But again, what's being taught to them? We have very little control of that. What is the TV teaching them? What are the video games teaching them? We have very little control of that. 85% of Christian parents 100% believe that, hey, we're responsible for the spiritual formation of our kids. Churchgoers believe that we should be teaching our kid about God. That's what one statistic says. However, when you get digging into the scriptures and you start looking at what that responsibility is, this is where we kind of fall down. The first part of the commandment says, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of commandments and you're to write those on your heart. Now we stop there in the verse. What does that mean? That means God fully expects us as parents to know the commands and to follow the commands. If we don't know them and they're not in our hearts, if the love of God's not in our hearts, we can't teach our kids. That's just reality. And God's saying, first, make sure as parents, you're pure, you're holy, and you are reading God's Word. When's the last time you opened up God's Word? When's the last time you read it? When's the last time that we looked at the commands and refreshed ourselves? We don't know them. How can we teach them to our kids? And the second part of it is, take time and sit down with your kids and teach them about God. When's the last time we've done that? When's the last time we even sat down? When you look at the numbers, it says the average parent spends about 15 minutes per week in a meaningful conversation with their kid. 15 minutes, that's it. And dads, and this is really a sad statistic. I found this one, and I thought it's really bad for us. Because it says 75% of teenagers say they've never, ever, ever had a meaningful conversation with dad. Ever. In their lifetime. 75%. That's the way they feel. That doesn't mean a dad didn't give a meaningful conversation. That means it never got through. The teenager didn't feel, Dad never really talked to me. When I look at the statistics, it says 30% of the time, let's say the mother comes to know Jesus. We have a mother that comes in here, and she gets to know all about God, and she says, I want to give my life to Christ. 30% of the time, all the family will follow the mother. The mother will go home and witness to the family, and they will come in. Guess what it is for Dad? It's really sad. 75% of the time, when Dad comes to know Christ, the whole family does. But where is Dad? Dad's not really in the equation. Most times, Dad doesn't come into church, which is sad. The reality is the number one vehicle that God wants to use, the family, for teaching all about God is kind of broken. And that's issue number 2. Our families are in shambles. God expects the family to teach the kids, but the families are busted up. And they're not functioning properly anymore. When you look at scriptures, it says this, by the very beginning of creation, God made male and female. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife. The two will become one flesh. They are no longer two, but one. Therefore, what God has put together, let no man separate. Let no person separate anywhere. We heard that in a marriage ceremony. We've heard that quite frequently. I've used that statement in a marriage ceremony. But the first part of it is kind of fuzzy for us. It says we are to leave our parents, we are to go out and find a wife, and then we are to have sex, and then we're to be united first and then have sex. That's the way it's supposed to go, but that's not what society's doing. We've got a whole bunch of people that are shacking up before they get married and living the dream. Now, what does that mean to your kids? Here's the reality. Kids get really, really frightened when they find out mom and dad are not married. When they find out that you're living common law, they get scared. Because they talk to their friends, and their friends say, well, that's really good and all, but my mom and dad, as far as I'm concerned, their mom and dad, even though they're not married, my mom and dad split up, and they just walked out the door. One of them laughed. Yeah, I got a new mom, or I got a new dad. And they're sitting back saying, well, if that can happen at any time, how can I feel safe in my environment? And then, for married couples, lest I leave them out, the divorce rates are staggering. So the poor kids are sitting there with a loving relationship within the confines of marriage, and they split up. And the kids are thinking, well, if mom and dad can just leave anytime they feel like, how am I supposed to feel secure? The numbers are huge, and they're growing. According to Statistics Canada in 1970, there was about, the long bar, by the way, is about 32-35%. That represents how many people have had a divorce and with kids. And then the other one is a common law. And as you can see, if you add the two together, which is really unstable homes, you see it's growing. It's up to around 55%. So the traditional family, the nuclear family, used to be mom, dad, and all the kids, all together in a family. That's no longer the traditional family. The traditional family is this case, where you have mom and dad and a bunch of kids, but they may not be biologically related. That is now the normal. And the kids are feeling the pinch. The reality is that when you look at Maslow's needs, remember I talked about physiological needs? You've got to have some food, some water, some shelter to live. But the very second one of that is safety. Kids want to feel safe. But if you come home and say, you know, I was at school today, and Johnny comes up to you and he says, Mom, you know, my friend, her mom just left. And they don't have a mom now. How's Johnny supposed to feel safe? Of course, Johnny doesn't. A lot of kids don't feel safe anymore because they're seeing their friends going through divorce, their parents, and they're not feeling safe. That has an effect on our kids. Social needs, esteem needs, self needs, these are all needs that are higher up than safety. And for a child to become really well adjusted, they've got to move up the ladder. But they never make it there because they don't feel safe. They don't feel safe in their own home. And when this happens, divorce, what happens to the kids is they feel so unsafe that every single adult that they meet, they stop trusting. Because if your own parents, who you love the most, decide that they're going to break up and cause you grief, do you think they're going to have any confidence in anybody else? And the answer is no, they don't. And that's what we're starting to see. From 1974 to 2005, we find that 60% of the kids inside our church actually thought the leaders were doing a really good job. They had confidence in the church leaders. That's now down to about 30%. 1 in 3 kids at the church actually believes that the leaders are going to be good people, that you can trust them, that you can believe in them, that you can have a relationship with them, but 2 out of the 3 don't. And they won't let you get close. No wonder why. A lot of them come from broken homes. Or at least know somebody who's gone through a broken home. They've lost their trust. That's the second issue. Third issue, probably the hardest one to deal with, is a sense of entitlement. Kids have more money today, I think, than they ever had before. They have more disposable income than can ever be imagined. The average kid now has $500, I'm talking about teenagers only, $500 per month is what they have for disposable income. And you might say, well, I don't give my kids $500 a month. How in the world did they get that number from? 30% of the kids now, between age 15 and 19, are actually employed. They go to school, they come home, and they go off to their job. They're making money. They're making good money. And they have nothing to really spend it on, when you think about it. They don't want to pay for food, water, shelter, clothing, heat, electricity. They don't pay for any of that. Parents all do that. They have more disposable income than parents have. So now the big corporations are starting to kick in. They're starting to realize if they want to make money, target our young people, and that's where you're going to make your money from. Anybody ever watched this movie here? Pirates of the Caribbean, the last one? That one there was a huge box office hit. It actually cost $250 million to make. Our corporations are targeting our kids. Absolutely. If you watch Pirates of the Caribbean, I challenge you to find God in it. I challenge you to find a message in it that relates to God. It doesn't. It relates to society. They're teaching our kids all sorts of things. $250 million. Incredible. And then if you go to video games, this one here, I forget the name of it, but this one here is absolutely staggering. Somebody knew the name? What was it?
Black Ops.
Black Ops. That one there is so real and so lifelike, it's almost scary. Have you ever been in a movie and you wonder, you're watching the characters go through the movie, and you're thinking, maybe you identify with one of the characters, and you say, wouldn't it be really nice if I had a joystick in my hand, and I could make that character do anything I want in the movie? Wouldn't that be kind of cool? Well, that's exactly what the video game is. The video games are so lifelike and so real nowadays, it's getting quite impressive how good they are with graphics. You can't tell the difference between a movie and a video game. And for our kids, this particular one grossed $1 billion plus and counting. It's still going in revenue. They're targeting our kids. Absolutely. And they're doing a fantastic job of entertaining our kids. You have the internet. 2 out of 3 kids in Canada are now connected to the internet, which is just scary. I went on Facebook last night and I found that 103 friends is the average that a teenager has for friends. 103 different friends. I don't know where they get them from, but they have them. 103. And I got thinking about that. The internet keeps them constantly connected. But are these really friends? Are they real? Do they really spend time with them? Do they know them personally? Do they walk with them? Do they talk with them? Do they smile with them? Do they hold hands with them? Do they get a hug from them? Do they get any of that? The answer is, in a lot of cases, no. They're not really friends at all. But in this day and age, everybody now is connected, one way or another. And the scary part is, unlike back in the industrial age and before, when you were in a farming community, and Rob could go home and he'd be assured whatever values his boys knew, they came from Rob. Now he doesn't know that anymore. Who knows where the values are coming from? Because as soon as they tap into the internet, they're connected to all the communities in the world with very different beliefs, conflicting beliefs. And our kids are bombarded with these messages. This is right. No, this is right. No, maybe this is right. No, actually this is right. No, that's right. And they don't know what's truth anymore. And it's starting to show up in our churches. Absolute truth. 10% of our population roughly believes there is absolutely no such thing as a true religion. 70 to 75% believe that there's many true religions, but they're not really sure which one's really true. They don't really care. And then on top of that, we finally got the 10 to 15% that believe in one true religion. Majority of our kids don't believe there's such a thing as truth. That affects the church. When kids come into our church and we say, Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and life, no one comes to God the Father except through Jesus, they don't believe you. They don't believe what you just said. Because they're looking at it and saying, but society's taught me there is no truth. Nobody has truth. That's what society tells me. The question is, how are we going to respond? We've got a challenge. A huge challenge as a church. And I want to give something like a report card. I know that sometimes we don't like report cards. I know when I took my report card home, sometimes it was really good. And I would bring it up like a badge of honor, and I'd lay it in front of my parents, and they'd be all tickled pink. But other times I'd hide it. I'd say, I don't want to show, because I know what they're going to tell me. I didn't do it near as well as what was expected. But this report card won't come as any surprise whatsoever. 1 in 4 teenagers will come to church. 70 to 90% of them will quit church by 18. As soon as they graduate from high school, they will not show up anymore, ever again, inside a church. And if you take those two numbers and put them together, it comes out to 5% of our church body, 5% of our community is actually being reached for Christ through the church. It's not very good. I like getting 80, 90% on tests. I don't like the idea of getting 5%. There was 100 teenagers here from Hillgrove. We randomly picked them, set them all in the pews. We'd have the whole thing packed, which would be awesome. But 5 out of those 100 teenagers would stay permanently in the church. The other 95 would be long gone. That's scary. If that continues into the future, guess what our church attendance is going to be? 5%. It's going to drop from 25 to 5. Because the kids, our youth, is our future. We'll be down to 5, which is scary. That's why so many churches are closing. What can we do about it? In the last 50 years, what have we been doing about it? Well, we've been entertaining. The parents entertain their kids because they feel guilty. The parents are entertaining their kids any way they can, through movies, through video games, through TV sets, whatever they got to do because they don't want their kids to be bored, and they do feel guilty. I don't blame them. If you're working all the time, you got no time for your kids, of course you're going to feel guilty. So when the kid comes up and says, I'm really, really bored, we buy them off. We give them whatever they want. And we spoil them rotten. We all do it. I do it. But it's not helping our kids. When they come up to you and say they're bored, do you really think that's what they mean? Do they really mean they're bored? Or are they asking, I just wish Mom and Dad would spend some time with me? Which are they really looking for? Now, if you ask a teen, I guarantee what they're going to tell you. Mom and Dad are just old. And Mom and Dad, I don't want to hang around them. And when I say I'm bored, I don't really mean I want to hang around with you, Dad. I really want to go do my own thing. Is that really what they're saying? On the outside, yes. On the inside, absolutely no. The church has thought for the last 40 years they could entertain. And that's what we've been doing. We've been trying to entertain our kids the best we can. We put on big shows. And we take the best budget that we possibly have, and we're trying to get our kids in. We're trying to get them excited. And when our kids say, I'm really bored, that really bugs us. And we're trying to entertain them all more. But in 40 years, it hasn't worked. Our numbers are going down. There's something missing. The problem is we can't entertain them. We can't compete with that kind of budget. When they put out a video game that costs $250 million, and a kid can go pay $60 and get the game and be entertained for hours, we can't compete with that. Absolutely not. When you have a movie that comes out, a couple hours, the kid's just on their seats, they're watching it in anticipation. $250 million budget, we can't compete with that. If we think as a church we can compete entertainment-wise, not a chance. We don't have a budget. Guess what our budget is? $5,000 maybe for our kids? I mean, we have a small meter budget. All the churches are in the same boat. We don't have millions and millions of dollars that we can spend for our kids. Absolutely not. And I'm wondering if that's really what they want. Do they really want the entertainment? Or are they looking for something else? I think they want something else. We have a vision. And we picked it right from Scripture. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the second one is love your neighbor. You know what our kids really don't have today? Love. They're missing it. They don't have it. We're not giving it to them. We took all our parental responsibilities and farmed it out. Our kids are dying for love, but they're not getting it. They want it. They need it. Did you know they're created in the image of God just as much as all the rest of us? And since they are in that image, they're built right inside them a thirst and desire to know God. A thirst and desire to be loved. But they're not getting that anywhere. They're not getting it out in the world, and they're certainly not getting it here. That's why they're so distraught. That's why we have so many teens that are depressed. That's why people will say, I got 103 Facebook friends, but I'm lonely. Why are you lonely when you've got 103 friends? In an old farming community, if you had 4 or 5 friends, that was awesome. You had a lot of friends. You were the popular kid because there wasn't that many kids around. But now today, 103 friends, but not a single one that you can really call a personal friend. Kids want to be loved. And we're not showing that. There's something else we're not showing them. I think we put God in the back seat. I think God's really what they want. It's built in them. They're created in the image of God. It's built right in the fabric of their being. A thirst and a desire to know God and to love God. Only God can give them what they're looking for. They want to know Him personally. They want to have a walk with Him. They want to know who He is. But if we're trying to entertain them, what do they learn about God? Absolutely nothing. They want to walk with God. You know what? There's only one friend. Only one that they could respect in this world. With all the divorce that they go through, with all the violence they see on TV, with all the people who used to be their heroes who have fallen off the wagon, have done things that they shouldn't do, all the pastors that have fallen from grace, all the individuals in their life that used to hold way up on a pedestal, and you find out they didn't make it. They've only got one that they can trust, and that's God. That's the only one. That's the only one that can reach down right into their hearts and say, I will love you. Not just today, tomorrow, the next day. I will never have a time when I don't have time for you. You can call me at 4 in the morning when you can't sleep, and I will spend time with you. I will not shoot out my parental responsibilities to somebody else. I will not sell you off. I'll actually spend time with you. God's the only one who can do that. God's also the only one who can tell them that they're loved. We don't do such a good job of that. We try. And as all parents, I know we try awful hard. But only God can reach into their soul and tell them they are loved unconditionally. In a way that we can't do it. We really can't. I wish we could reach into the soul of the kid and tell them we love them. That would be awesome. I'd spend the rest of my life doing that. But I can't do it like God can. God can tell them exactly what they need to hear. And that is they're special. They're important. They're loved. Unconditionally loved. He will never leave them, never forsake them. He will never sell them off. That's what they're looking for. So as we approach a Vision Day, I think we've already beaten the odds, number one. We've got some of the best youth leaders around. We are beating the odds. We do have people that are still here. They've graduated from high school. They're still here. We have people that are in here right now, teens that are in here, that statistically speaking, we've broken all those odds. And I attribute that to really good leadership. I attribute that to our youth leaders who are doing a superb job. Now the question is, do we want to take another level? Do we want to go one step further? I gave you a challenge this morning. Parents are the number one thing that a child spends time with. Number one person. You know what? The reality is I get an hour a week with kids. I might get a couple hours if I'm lucky. Jamie gets an hour a week with the kids. Maybe a couple hours if she's lucky. Dennis, Rob, all of us. We only get a couple hours. Guess how many hours the parents get? An awful lot more. I think we've got to start teaching our parents how to love their kids. I think we've got to start teaching our parents how to love God. I think we've got to reach into the family, into the home, and help our parents out because they've lost their way. We've got to do that as a church body. That's why it's called Youth and Family Ministry. It's the family that's breaking down. Both need help. Not only the teen, but also mom and dad. Because if you think that mom and dad don't have the same needs as their kids, they do. They want to know God. They want to love God. They want to show their kids they love them. But they need help to do that. And they need the training. So I give you that as a challenge. When we get up to the Vision Day, start thinking outside the box. Start thinking about some of the responsibilities that we have, some of the issues that we have, and how can we start leading this for our community? How can we get parents more involved? How can we get the kids more involved? How can we reach out to the kids? And it really is all about a personal relationship with God that we should be offering. Entertainment's awesome, and it's absolutely crucial. But God should be first. These kids will not stay